Hey guys, it's David, and yes, I got everything working. Sorry about that. This is supposed to be actually a Thursday paint along, and I wanted to go outside today because actually it's a little bit too hot out there. It's always something, right? And it was raining last night, and so. But this is a scene that way I was going to do last Thursday for the paint along, and I was so mad that I couldn't get it out there. I was just, these computers sometimes just really frustrate you, right? And so thanks if you're coming back, and sorry if you were waiting for a long time. We're going to try to do this really quickly, and I'm going to show you how to do this beach scene. And I'm trying to change things up a little bit with putting a little bit of gouache, and I'm trying to be a little bit looser with my painting. But also when I'm teaching here, I want to show you how you don't have to make it again look exactly like the image that you have on your screen. I'm really learning a lot about that when it comes to plein air painting when I'm out there painting on plein air. And though you can do that same thing with photographs, it's no different. A lot of times the photograph will not give you. They always say that it's like the photograph lies, right? Because it's not. It depends on what the paper and what the paper photo quality of the paper or the digital file, and it'll be what your screen color is, and so it's not really. It's not telling the truth. It's a lot of times lying. And that was one of the big things I heard a lot of times when I'm plein air painting and I'm watching everybody paint out there, and you see that they're not using exactly what's out there. Some people are. Some people try to get really close to whatever. Some people don't. But here, what I'm going to do today is I do want to show you that right up here. Let me see. Do I have a pointer? Well, I'll point to it right here. Well, right up there. See on the top of this image, and there's my down below. Actually, down below here. Where's my hand? Anyways, down below here, see how up here in this corner, this little corner right here. See that? If you look at the color picture, it's light and a light blue, and I think that's not a great thing to put in there. So I'm gonna change that. I'm not gonna put the blue up there, and so we're gonna just leave that dark color up there, right? Because it is a dark. It's almost like the center is where the light is, right? And everything that's a light. Look at my no-tan right here, the no-tan. So look at the people are dark against the light, and so that's what I'm going to follow. And you don't have to make it, they're not going to be that dark. They're not going to be black on them. They're just going to be darker than the background, the water. So that pops out. And this whole area, this is one time where the background and the foreground are part of my center of interest, which can happen. It's okay. It's not an object when you say center of interest. It's usually an area. And so that's what I always tell my students. It's like it's an area, not object. Let's see if anybody's here. Hey, Sherry. Hello from Indiana. And hopefully it's nice and hot by you too. It's hot everywhere. Boy, I didn't put the air conditioning on here, so it's a little bit warm, but that's okay. So let's start with our lights then, because our lights are going to go from the middle here. So to look at this object and look at how I'm going to go through it, I always plan my attack. If I'm plein air painting or if I'm in my studio, I look at the no-tan of the picture. I look at the picture and look and squint my eyes and see where the lights and darks are. When I'm plein air painting here, I don't have to do that because I've got the no-tan right here. I got that right there, and so see, I can just look at that and know where my lights are going to be. And the only part that's going to be white is the sun right there underneath the pier there, the pier house. And so that's where and I'm also going to blur out the pylons that are going into the pier, into the water. I'm going to make them like basically not there. And I'll put them in later also. And so I'm going to go from light, I'm going to wet everything and go from light to dark. And actually, I don't have to wet everything. I'll wet above and then wet below. And just get my lights. All right, let's just get going here. Let me stop talking so much. Ask questions. Hey, Kay Gatzman. Hello from Huntington Beach, California. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for coming by. And so I'm going to just wet here, and I'm also using a board, and that's was dirty out of my portfolio. I had gotten it, and so there's a little bit of this blue in the corner here, but I'm gonna get darker than that, so that's okay. I got a couple little spots here that I probably when I was spattering Another thing, this is close by, this paper, and so it's got a little bit of work, that stuff. I probably should have, now that I think about it, probably should have went around that area. And this is again that board that I been hating, but that's okay because I just trying to get rid of it all. See how it's right here? See that little mark right there? See what's happening with this paper? It's so funny. It's so weird. This used to be a paper that I used to love when I was in school. That Irving Shapiro, my mentor, loved this paper, this board, and so I'm getting a bunch of these together, and I'm going to send them over to the Crescent company. Crescent is in Wheeling here in Illinois, and so I just want to show them how terrible this is and do something about it. Because I do want to use it some more, but right now I'm going to a plein air event in Easton, Maryland, and I'm bringing with a bunch of Stonehenge aluminum panels, which is going to be really nice. And so I'm going with yellow here, and I'm floating my pigment. At least I'm trying to, anyways. Because this board is, like I said. Did I ever make it to Total Wine? No, I did not. I didn't make it there. Are you talking about the one in Traverse City? I was so busy in Traverse City. There was so much to do there. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how much there was to do. And the town itself of Traverse City is unbelievably crowded this time of year. It's like they triple their population, and the roads. I couldn't believe how you could not make a left turn out of the campground that I was staying at. So here I'm getting more orange as I go away from it, right? And it looks like there's a lot of pink in this, so why not use a little bit of opera? I'll use a little bit of opera in my yellow. And when I had this problem with this board, what I do is I use white, and then it covers up that little bit of the. It must be that these were big boards, and they must have been sitting in the warehouse for a while or something, because I just think that the sizing has been ruined. But if you're an artist and you know how something works, and you know, I just add white, and that brings my white paper back. You see, I just float it into the water, and it softens everything up and gets rid of my little things. And so that's not something you want to actually learn, though. You want to use good products from the start. And I always say that, use good professional quality products. And now I'm going a lot of yellows here, but I'm going to be getting pinker as I go on here. It's going to get pink. And my new style that I'm going to be trying to get next year is going to be gouache and watercolor together as one. Just they are the same thing in the fact that they're watercolor, but I do want to make the effect of thick. I want some thickness in my paintings, like an oil. I really like the look of that. When I see oil paintings in the shows that I've been going to, I like that look, and so I'm going to try to get them both in mind. Look, what I'm teaching here, I do want to teach you how to do transparent and opaque. Not so much opaque, but it's just that when you're using opaques, like within a wet wash, you can still make it look transparent, and so it just gives it a more pastel look when I'm using white. See, I'm using white in this. It just lightens it up and makes it more pastel, and it also covers up. It's like a house paint that covers up the wall that you're trying to cover up, and so that's what it's happening with my white here. Now up here I didn't wet enough, so I'm gonna have to wet now. And see, I'm just getting darker, just like the photo, just like the no tan. I'm just getting darker and darker as I go up. Now those clouds I can do in two different ways. I can blot up, or I can put in white paint. So that's one of those things. I'll try to do it first without using white paint. I'm just trying to go in there around it, and then later on I will maybe put white paint on top of that. I'm not sure why I'm going into purple yet. I want to still get some more pink and lilac. and I'm helping the water here soften my pigment, because the paper is draining into the paper, my thing. So you just deal with whatever you got going on. You can always deal with it knowing if you know what your pigment is doing. You know, it's not that hard when you if you practice enough and you know how pigment works. You can just add a little bit of white to it, and that will soften up my edges. And it's laying on top and covering up what I don't like, and that is that it's sucking up my paint and my water. Alright, so now we gotta go to a purple. So get this, a little bit of purple in here. Oh, I said I was gonna try to go around the clouds. Oh man, I'm gonna take them out with the paper towel. I'll show you how you do that too. Painting around a white cloud, because they're very soft, wispy clouds, and so if they were hard white clouds in the blue sky, then you can make them hard edged. But I want to make these a little bit soft, so I'm going to do wet in the wet, because you know you have to do wet in the wet when you're doing soft edges. Again, sorry for anybody that came here on Thursday and waited around trying to wait for me, but my computer was just not wanting me to go do anything. My Wi-Fi was out. Everything was just one thing after another. Sherry, you talk about the pushing them back, and I actually I was going to do that. I had it already drawn up on Thursday, and then when I looked at it, I thought, yeah, they're kind of big in the foreground. You can make them smaller and push them into the scene a little bit more. I think that's actually a good thing to do. I already drew them on, and so I'm gonna do them where they are right now. And so, but definitely a good idea. Definitely a good idea. Bring them down a little bit. And it's kind of a personal thing too, in that fact that they're okay up here if I make them really tight and forward. But if you push them back a little bit, they'll look probably even more like the size they should be, farther into the beach and stuff. And so that's fine. Definitely fine. And thank you for reading my newsletter. It's amazing what I've learned on these last couple trips and these plein air events that I've been doing. And see here, now I'm using it a little bit thicker, and so I'm getting a brush stroke effect. And but I must have really did a number on this paper, because I got fingerprints here, so I must have put fingerprints in, so it's rejecting. So I gotta start using brand new stuff. Sorry guys. I gotta use this stuff up though. Put a little bit of blue on top with the purple. Make my purple a little bit more bluer. And the reason I'm not putting that bright blue up in here in this corner is because then you have something to look at in the corner of your paper, and that's not something I want that people look at. You know, that's I don't want to direct your eye to the corner of the image. You know, up here, I don't want your eye to see that blue. You can make it like the whole thing up there a little bit blue. Let's say if I want to do this, if I want to put blue up there on top and make it kind of added to that a little bit, that's okay. But to put something in the corner is not a good thing, because your eye is going to constantly go there. I'm going to wipe out in a second. I'm going to wipe out and show you how to get some of those clouds up there. But first I've got to get the main amount of pigment up here. Let me just put a little bit of orange down here. If it's still wet, you know, when things are wet, you can go in like this, but don't go in with more water than that it's on the paper, because then you'll get watermarks. But if you go with the same amount of water, then it's there, then it's fine to go across it and just push it back and forth. And I'm going to take some paper towel, and I'm just going to take and dab in there and try to get my clouds. And you can do this, but a lot of times it gives you hard edges. But I can go in here, and no, I can't, because this is soaking into the board. So see the board is just, it's something about the sizing. It's normally you would do this on a piece of paper and you just get everything coming back. Here you can, because there's a little mark right there. So what do? I'm going to use white paint. So with the water on the paper, I'm going to take white, pure white. Let me put a little bit more water on the paper too, because I just took it off of there with a paper towel. So I'll put water back onto the paper, onto the board. And I'm really liking painting on board, and so I've been doing a lot of gluing down my paper onto board, which is, you know, I know that you don't want to do when you're practicing, because then you have a bunch of big blocks of boards. But when you're doing a regular painting, you know, sometimes for when you're doing it for somebody, or you're doing it in your studio and you want to frame it right away, it's good to do it on a board. You know, some people do it afterwards, and that's fine too. You know, you just gotta be careful when you're gluing it to a board when you already painted it. But it makes it so easy to frame. I mean, it's so easy to frame that kind of stuff. So now it's wet again. I'm going to take pure white, and I'm just going to dab it in there and just paint the clouds in. And make it float, make the pigment float on here, and so it'll have a look of opaqueness to it, which is fine. But you let the pigment soften its own edge. And it's basically doing wet into wet to get the soft edges with opaque color, with opaque white. I mean, I use titanium white because it's an opaque white. If you use Chinese white, it's transparent, and then it just transparently goes, you can see through it. And so here, and also, like I noticed in the picture that these are more pink, these clouds. So why wouldn't I put a little bit of pink in the white? So I should have done that right away. Put a little pink in the white, and that way you're using a pinkish color. And it's thick, but I'm floating in water so that it separates it by itself. These soft edges makes the soft edges on its own. So see, that's a more pink color now that I'm using instead of white. And it's almost getting a little bit too dry, so I better re-wet it. I'll even use pink here down here in the bottom. I have pink in my palette, so I can just use that too. And look at, there's a couple of wisps right here. Just gonna wisp it a little bit. And the pigment is still floating even though it is light colored. You know, I find this to be very simple to do on this board, and I'm only doing this because of the board is being bad. Sorry about that. I will get rid of this stuff this weekend. When actually next week I'm going to use it up during the event. Yeah, let's see. And you can also do that with darks. Let's get some darks in there. You know, do dark clouds. While it's wet, just go in there and let the pigment soften itself. And how is it softening itself? Is because you wet the surface. When you wet the surface, it is wet in the wet. The technique is wet in the wet. I'll put a little blue. Now that dirty board that I had, you can't see the blue anymore anyways. Alright. I'm making them a little bit different than I see in the picture, because you don't have to follow it exactly. You know, if you don't like the clouds the way they look exactly, you don't, again, have to do exactly what you see on your photo. I'm going to bring that up there. I'm kind of whispering them in this direction. I like these over here. Bring that down into the light part. It's a little nervous, the nervous shake, right? Where I'm just kind of going like this, back and forth. Alright, so that's the sky. I'll leave it at that. If I wanted to put like a bright blue in there, like the clouds are separating, because these are just dark clouds up there, and they're covering up the sky. But if you wanted to put the dark in there, I would bring it down more. But there's too much going on. I don't want my eye getting up in the corner there. Okay, let me see. Now let's go into our water. Now our water is blue, but you know, it's kind of weird that that water is that blue. I got a feeling this is an AI image, and so a lot of times it just makes up things and stuff. And so I'm gonna go more with the yellow first up here. I'm gonna wet it as I go along because I want to have like the sunlight coming through here. And these little dots of things that fell on my board. It's gonna be darker. But I'm gonna go with the yellow first, and then I go to the orange right away. Orangey pink, right? Because we're gonna go with that right away. I think that makes more sense than the blue, because I know they have blue on, and there's a blue in the sky, but because I don't have the blue in the sky, I think that would look kind of strange to have blue all of a sudden there instead of the purple and yellow orange that I've been using. Knowing, you know, how nature works and knowing how the reflections work and stuff like that is really good to just observe when you're out there. And that's what I learned so much when I'm out there painting plein air, because you really observe what colors really are, what reflects into what, and how greens are everywhere. And I mean, there's so many things that you learn out there when you're just observing. And you don't have to be painting to observe. You can just go out there, and when you're taking a hike, or if you're walking around, or you know, look at things. And so I'm going to go opposite of what I did in the sky. I'm going to do in the water. And these people are dark against this stuff, so I'm going to go right through them. I'm not going to paint around them, because then you get these white lines. And you could have rim lighting. That's okay to have, but I'll put that in with white paint. When I say no tan, that's that picture, that black and white. Look up no tan notanizer. It's an app that you can get to make things black and white. It basically, notanizer or no tan is making your picture black and white and just looking for the black and white of the scene. That's what no tan is. It's a Asian way of design, like the yin yang, the black and white yin yang thing. That's the no tan is the black and white. And they have apps, they're called Notanizer, that will turn your picture black and white. And it eliminates your middle tones, and you have to decide on which way your middle tone goes, either to the light or to the dark. So my water, I'm going to make a little bit more purplish blue. I'm kind of dipping into all my blues here. I'm just going to kind of take them across here. And again, I'm going across the people. And I can make them a little bit smaller because I'm probably going to lose my line anyways, and so I can make them a little bit smaller. Yeah, I have to learn how to do that a little bit more. That's one of the suggestions, like in my newsletter, like I said. Looking at other people's work and seeing how they work and getting advice from other artists like Joseph Zubovik. And boy, his advice was very good. And watching him paint and watching him do things, you really realize, you know, because I'm into composition a lot now, because I have to find things to paint for you guys, for myself, so it's always interesting to see what people choose to paint, and sometimes I would never even think of choosing certain things that I've seen other people choose. And that you can look at also when you're looking at books and stuff. Look at what they paint. It's very interesting. Sometimes you never think, and copy it too. Sometimes copy the images of what they paint. That way you can see exactly what they were thinking. You know, that's what the masters used to do. They used to copy other masters before they were masters. And so say, now I'm going to like a bluish purple. And then the sand doesn't, it's like all blue down here. I'm not going to make it blue down there. I'm going to make it, well, the pink or the yellow will be down here. Like, that's pretty nice. I like that. Because it's reflecting wet, right? It's reflecting wetness into the sand. Because there's water on the sand, so you really don't see the sand at all. You see a reflection of what's above it. So I'm just going to take those colors, bring them down here. And again, you see how I went right through the people? Now, because of this board, I pushed so hard that I do see them, so I don't have to make them that size, unfortunately. But Sherry, again, good suggestion. And make this look more orange. And how do I make my orange out of the yellow? I just add the opera, the pink, the red. You can add red into that, and it'll be turn nice orange. It's a great orange. It's like a salmon color when you mix the yellow with the pink, with the opera. And remember, everything dries about 20% lighter, so don't be afraid to get in there with a little bit darker a wash than you see. And as long as it's wet, you can apply other paint and colors in there, because it's gonna be soft edged because you're doing wet into wet. And I'm gonna put some of these waves in there right now. And you notice I didn't put this white in there yet. I'm just going to add white paint thick. You could put masking fluid there, knowing that you're going to have those parts white, or just wait. In this foreground, I'm going to do like the purple from the sky and from the water. So I just changed it, instead of blue, I changed it to more purple. And because purple is my favorite color, that's a good thing. Just get in here, get a little shadow beside them. I noticed that there's not really good reflections in the water of them, which I can put in later too. But there should be some reflections in the sand from them. So see, I didn't wet the whole thing. Remember, I didn't wet the whole thing because I wet it as I went along. And I call that, because sometimes you can take more control that way. If you're just painting from as you're going along, you can wet it as you go along. You're going to get soft edges because you're wetting it. But then I can keep some parts hard edged if I need to keep them a little bit harder edged. Alright, so there we go. There we have pretty much all our middle tones and our lights and middle tones, and some of our darks. And then we're going to go right into dark details, which is the only thing I have next, is the pier and the people, right? And then I can do the water, a little bit more detail in the water, get the edges and stuff. But right now, that's all the big stuff. It's all wet into wet. So let's go right into our building back here. Hopefully it's dry, which it isn't, but we're going to go and see. We'll make the paint a little bit thicker. And on this pier, you always start light to dark, and so I will start with the lights. And you notice that the pier is not very dark back there. It's all orangey yellow, right? Because it's blurring. It's so bright, the sun, that you're getting orange and orange and yellows right to the edge, and it's blurring out. It's called optical scatter, where it scatters and you don't see parts of the thing because it's so bright that it's eliminating the image itself. And I can go from yellow. I'll start with the lightest color. Always go light to dark with watercolor. And I can put them into the water right away. And as I can just wet it as you go along. I don't have to. I'm wetting it with a color and water, right? There's pigment, which gives me the color, and then I'm wetting it with water, and so then it'll be floating again. So it may be small, but it's floating. This is still floating. There's a little line right here. And take your time with this now, because this is detail. I wanted it to look like just like what you see. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker as it goes away from the sun. I'm going to keep it really warm though. I'm not going to switch to a purple or a blue until I get up here, because this is all being lit up with the sun, and I want it to be yellow or orange or really, really light. All the way down through here, and I can also put white on later. And if I do a really, really, really fine, like take a lot of water, you can put them in there, but just really super light. Like you almost barely don't see what's happening in here. That gives the illusion of it being so bright that it's blinding you. And now up here, we're just going to go darker and darker. Go to my purple. And the top of this building is the darkest, so let's put a really darker up there. Just to, why am I using such a big brush for such a small thing? Use the brush that best fits the purpose. So go with a nice small brush when you're doing small things. Otherwise, you know, you have too many hairs and too big a brush. So sometimes you can handle it, you know, but sometimes it's just stupid to sit there and try to make these really small little lines when you're doing detail with a big, huge brush. And this looks like I'm going to put a little lightning rod on top here, even though there's not one there. I'm going to do it myself. And then just keep on getting warmer as you go down. There is a window right here I can go around. And let's see, it goes down to like an orange, and then just go pure orange yellow. And if you can, let it blend itself with water. Again, put water down and let it blend itself together. Now, is it dark at the top? No, it is not. It's got to be really nice and dark up here so that it feels like the sun is not getting up on top. So nice dark up here. And let it blend down where it gets lighter and lighter. You got to get the illusion of softness and hardness going up from there, right? And the same thing happens here. As it goes over here, it gets really dark, so I can put the same color. I'm just going to have it in my brush, so I might as well put it down right away. I'm just going to put this really dark over here. And it actually goes into the water too, so just let's do a little bit of water here. Some of these posts. And as I come over, I'm going to get lighter and lighter as I come over. And some people like to put the people in first because they feel like if they don't draw it right or if they don't paint it right, then they didn't waste any time. Don't do that. Just wait for the end when it's, you know, those are farthest forward, they're most detailed, or lightest contrast, and so put them in, you know, when it's time. And it's time when you do your dark details. And I'm getting lighter. And these are actually like little bowed things, which I didn't do. I notice now they're like little bowed areas. And then you can put people walking on the surface here. You can put little dots. There are some lights on it, I think. There's some of these posts that go up. And I'm putting them in detailed now. I don't have to wait for that. I'm at that stage now. I'm just going to put them in. Now let's turn to more of an orangey yellow. Because see, it's going light, darker, 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 darker. And how detailed you want is up to you. Like how tight you want it. That's up to you. I try to keep it a little bit looser. While you have this in your brush, you can also do this down here. There's a little bit of the reflection of that in here. A little darker underneath the wave, underneath the water. This is This is wet sand, so wet sand looks like a mirror, so you're going to mirror up what's above it. And anytime you want to make it look like it's going back, because it stops, it gets kind of thick, and then you'll have a little line, a little dark line underneath where it kind of rolls over. Okay, let's do the people now. Because now I can do them. Because now there's all the big stuff has been done. I'm working from back to front. I'll get to super fine detail later, but now let's get these guys. And they have, he has a white t-shirt on and she has a white outfit on. Hey Gigi, no, that's okay to oversleep. It's always on here, so you can always come back. Let's see. Okay, so how dark should I make that? So I should make them darker than behind them, but do I make it, what color do I want? Right now there's blue against blue. Should I make their outfits, the white would be the color of what's around it, because if you have white on, it's basically reflecting the colors around it. So let's do a dark purple. Let's give them a dark purple. He's got a dark purple shirt on, or he's got a white shirt on, but I mean, when it reflects all the stuff around it, you're gonna get that purple. It's like a little bit of lavender, and it doesn't have to be as dark. As long as it's darker than behind it, that's okay. And then I'll do flesh tone, and I'm wetting it as I go along, so it's going to be soft edge after I get the shape. I'm going to get the shape of the person, and then I have a wetness inside the shirt, and that's where I can float other pigments in there. And I can put a little bit of orange on the edge, where this is like on the edge of the t-shirt. I can put a little bit of that. I can make his arm a little bit more orange. For this flesh tone, which is just warm, basically. So Sherry, yes, I would have made them smaller if I didn't. I marked it too much, so it went right into the paper. And I will put later on when I get done totally, when I do the dark details and the lights, I am going to put highlights of white into the picture. Actually, white paint instead of masking fluid that I didn't use. That's what I would do. I would just go in there. And now the head I drew a little bit too big, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Always make your head smaller than you think. We make them way too big. A lot of times they're big balloons on top of the head, so just not too dark, not too big on the heads. And do I use brown because he's got brown hair? No, I'm using the purple because I need to have it reflect into there. I will make it kind of darkish brown, but purple and orange together make brown anyway. So, and then he has long shorts on, long white shorts. So just keep on going with the purple. I'm going to shift it up a little bit, but they're long white shorts. And again, just because something is white does not mean that it's white on the paper. It's white, the fact that it's you're silhouetting these shapes against that. And a little bit in the front here, I could put a little bit of highlight of a yellowish, a little bit of yellow, like on his calf right here, because it's reflecting, the sun is reflecting on there. And so there I can put a little bit of that on there. Now his flesh tones come next, and so I'll make that a little bit more orangey. And then I'm assuming they have like maybe sandals or beach thongs on, or beach shoes. And her leg, same thing. We just take the same. When you got a certain color in your brush and you have it, and you're doing like the legs and stuff, just keep it going as far as you can. Hello from South Carolina. Does paper ever stop absorbing as darker pigment is added? Paper stops absorbing. Usually, it only absorbs a little bit, and then it can absorb only so much, and it doesn't really matter the amount. Well, it does matter a lot about the amount of pigment that you put on the paper, because if you put a thick paint, it's not about dark or light; it's about how thick it is, and it'll stop absorbing the thicker it is, because it's filled up. It's filling up. The paper filled up already, and then you just it stops and it lays on top. And also, the wetter it is, the more it's going to absorb. The drier it is, it's going to stay on top. And thanks for the question, guys. Yeah, and it's not about the darkness or lightness. It's about the amount of pigment that you use. I can make a really white, and the white I'm going to put it on top, and it'll stay on top because I put a thick amount of it right on top of the paper. Now her, we're going to do the same thing, where she has a white dress on, and so we're going to make it more violet-y, like because white gets a certain color depending on what's around it, you know, because it's shadowed. It's shadowed. So what do you use for shadow in white? Anything that's around it, because that's what's going to be giving you the clue of what color white looks like in shadow. So I'm going to use some purple, and there's so many different types of purple, right? And so you can shift it off a little bit here and there, and then you can also, like I said, you can put color here does she have? It's got to have orange, right? Because she's a redhead. So we're going to put the redhead right here. So the edge is going to be more orangey on her hair and her arms, because the sun is coming this way, right? And then on this side it'll be dark. So there, I'll make it nice and dark, away from the sun. And it is darker than the dress, so just make it darker. Now the arm, she has a strap right here, which I'll paint in later. Now let's give her some pink for her flesh tone. And her arm is not as dark as the hair, but close. Put a little bit of that pink in the hem too. You notice how I'm letting things float together? Like, I don't need to have it all hard edged in there. As long as you see the outer shape of the people, you know they're people, right? You don't have to overthink it. Difference of shadow versus reflection. Yeah, well, there's shadow will be on top of the surface. Reflections goes into, it's almost like a mirror. So I'll do that in a second. I'll show you how that's a very good question, though, because people sometimes mistake reflections from shadows, and they're two different things. Shadows and reflections are two different things. Shadows go from the sun, away from the sun, where shadow just goes down below into the water, into the wetness of the sand. So the shadow would be like this, and the wet ones would be straight down. Now see how I didn't get quite as dark as what is in the photo of the Notan, and even in this, but that's coming. I'm going to go some really light lights and some really dark darks, but this I'm doing the large areas first. So you got to do the large areas first before you can start doing the small stuff. Here I'm adding a little bit darkness into it. So with the reflections, now this is a reflection. The reflections go straight down on something that's wet. It's almost like you're standing on a mirror, and so whatever above is below. I know John Salmon used to have he used to do like a little black and white sketch and then flip it over and then rub it, and it would make the drawing like with graphite, and he would put it in there. But here I'm just going to go. And so his legs are going straight down. And this is a reflection, not a shadow. This is not a shadow. It's a reflection, and so it's reflecting into the wet sand. So you're getting it to look like a mirror. It's a mirror basically. And I'm just going to go straight down. And where it's not wet, you have to stop, because it's not going to be reflecting if there's no water there. So here's a little bit of the water is right there a little bit. And I'm just looking at my photo to see where this is coming in and stuff. And the shadow would sometimes it doesn't the shadow doesn't hit the surface of water as well as if some ground. But let me just show you, the shadow would be going in this direction. You take the sun and just go like this, and you see that this would be a shadow on the top of the surface. Now, if it's wet, it's not going to show the shadow as much. It's more the fact that you want the reflections, and it doesn't. The darkness and lightness of that doesn't really. It's all about what they're wearing and how dark they are. That's reflecting. The shadow is darker when it starts here and goes away. As it goes away, it gets lighter. So that's how you know the light and darkness of them. See, this is straight down. This is a reflection, and that's a shadow. And I don't like to put both of them in because it just looks kind of strange to have all these lines and stuff. And so the shadow, I would eliminate the shadow because the reflection is enough, and a lot of times there's not as much shadow anyways because it's not direct, super direct sunlight. So I'm going to get rid of this a little bit by putting a little bit of white and lavender on here and just making it look wet. And usually one is enough to explain what's happening in the area. You don't need to be so perfect with it. You know, as long as you identify what's happening in an area. And reflections, definitely put them on the ground, right? And so that's kind of nice. I'm just going to cover over my shadow part. And you can make little waves with little lines like this, little waves. And now super fine details. Now I'm going to start using darks and lights to kind of put in super intricate details. Like I noticed that in the beach here, there's a little bit of, you know, a little bit of texture in this water. Like there's stuff showing outside. There's like, it's basically footsteps also in the sand that the water goes down into, and I'm using my small brush for small details. Don't use a big brush for or for small details. It's just too hard. Unless you're deserted on an island and you only have one brush, then go ahead. I always said if I ever get stranded on an island, this is the brush I'm taking with me, and this will be my Wilson because I can do everything with this one brush. But if you don't need to, you know, you don't need to. So now I'm just going to go in here and just give myself some waves. And find the under part of the wave. This is almost just like a tint. And a tint is a lot of water with not much pigment. And so I'm not going to pick up a lot of darks. I'm just going to pick up texture and like the waves. I can do waves, little waves. Okay, now you notice like I didn't get any orange down here, so this is where I'm going to start taking my opaques. Take my white and my orange and my pink, and I'm just going to like wisp them across the top of the paper. And this is opaque. This is called gouache in the sense that it's not gouache I bought, but it's gouache I'm making by adding watercolor thickly onto the paper with a little bit of white in there because I'm just want it to be covering up. I want a little bit of orange up here, like you see it kind of coming over here. And if you float gouache in water and let it soften itself, it still looks like transparent watercolor because you're getting a soft edge. You're just getting more of a pastel color. And if you are a true, you know, transparent watercolorist, then that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And matter of fact, most people paint that way. I just been trying to figure out this gouache, this whole gouache thing, because the gouache is becoming very popular right now in everything. And so I'm just trying to see how it all would work together, watercolor and transparent watercolor and opaque watercolor. All right, so now let's take some solid white, and I'm going to put solid white in for reflections because we're getting to the end here. We got 10 minutes left, which is actually a lot of time. I can't believe how fast we just went. So here, down the white, down the center here, I'm going to put a couple little bit. Oh, see, that's not white enough. Also, get yourself a tube of white or a jar of white. There's a jars. I forget what the company is called again. A jar of white paint, and put in fresh because you want it thick. If you're putting in white, like I'm putting in white right now, and this will be thick, but I just have to soften it up a little bit. This is the only color of Holbein transparent colors. Well, this is an opaque color anyways. That I have to, it dries a little bit harder, and you have to use a little bit more water to get it back out to work. So I'm just going to put it down here, and I notice there's a lot not happening here, but I'm going to put a little bit more than it has in the picture. And go straight down. This is a reflection of the sun in the water. This is not a shadow. Of course it's not a shadow, right? But it's just true reflection in the water. And always think of it like a mirror. Just look at a mirror, lay a mirror down, and put stuff on it and see what it looks like on a mirror. Basically, take a mirror, put it down on a board, and then put stuff on it and look at how the reflection looks into the mirror. That's actually what you're doing. Just pretend like it's a mirror there. Here we're going straight down, breaking it up a little bit. I notice there's only a little bit down here, but you do what you want. You can put a little bit more, a little bit less. I'm going to take my small round rigger brush and start putting some whites up. They're smaller, like rim lighting on these two. And you notice how I didn't make them as dark as in the picture. You know, even because I may put a little bit of darkness, but I'll put little edges on them of white. Like it's hitting the side, they're rim lighting a little bit. And if you use Chinese white, that will go away. You won't see that very much. And so make sure you use titanium white when you're using it to cover up. Nice. I always like to do the shoulders. The shoulders look good when they're lit up a little bit because they're coming from the top, but this is coming from behind here. And you can also put glints of little, depending, you know, little dots on the waves. There's a little window here. There was a window, so I'm going to make it look like you can see through a little bit. So a little white doesn't hurt. Nothing hurts. You know, like you can get that same look with masking fluid if you, in the beginning, put it down. You know, put it down before you start painting, and then after you're done, and you take it off, and you'll get the same thing. So if you want to become a true traditionalist, then do that. Use masking fluid. See how the white doesn't, it kind of fades? And I missed his foot right there. There's no foot for him to step down on. So just put a little foot there. And I think we're almost close to done here. Like he's walking forward. Any last questions, guys? Hey, Chase. Happy 4th to you. There's little dots that I remember the paint or the dots in my paper. Those are still there, and so what I'm going to do is make some waves with a little bit of opaqueness to it, and then cover them up a little bit with some waves over them. All right. I think that's going to be about it. Any last questions before you run out and spend the rest of the holiday weekend out there in the heat, or hopefully not so much the rain? In Chicago, there's racing going on. Hey, Carol. Yeah, racing today. Oh yeah, Dr. Martin's bleed proof white is what you get in the jars. Thanks for that information, Carol. All right, I think that's about it, guys. Let me move it over so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. So fun. And then where would I sign this? I would sign this right here. I'm even leaving myself a spot because it's almost like perfect right there. And this is actually darker in the image, and I think I should make it a little bit darker so when I put my image, my signature there, it'll be a little bit darker. So just one last thing. Just going to darken this up a little bit. You can always darken. That's one nice thing about watercolor. You can always darken. And so give it a little texture. And again, sorry about that. I couldn't do this on Thursday. Computers sometimes just go crazy. And so there you have it. Have fun with this one, guys. And I will see you. I may do one next Thursday because it's the start of the next day will be the start of the Easton Plein Air event. But I think that night I may have a time to do something. We'll see. So follow my newsletter. Look at my website if you want to see if I'm doing something on Thursday. I always put that information up there. I just don't quite know exactly if it's going to be there or not. But thanks, guys, for showing up. Make them a little bit stronger. All right. We'll see you on hopefully next Thursday. If not, the following Sunday maybe. Or I'll probably be out there painting. And maybe I should turn on the camera. Maybe I'll do that one time. Turn on the camera while I'm painting. All right, guys. Thanks. Thanks, Beth. Thanks, everybody.